Hello everyone, welcome back to Python tutorials by Code Warriors. In the previous video we have talked about the for loop and we talked it in just in a basic way. We talked about how for loops we use we use for loops with the different kinds of data types, integer to sets and all, and we've covered it in a much more basic way. Today we are going to talk in a much more advanced way in the for loop, in a much more, you can say, in a complex way. And we will merge for loop with a list and see the operations inside the list, how we can work directly, how we can implement for loop directly inside of a list and complete like 2-3 lines of for loop code in just a one line. We will see it today. Okay, so without wasting time, let's move on to our spider and see how we are going to do this all of this. Okay, so in the previous video we talked about the range function inside the for loop, and we have used it like for any variable num in range, and we have used it like 10, and we printed hello. Hello. Okay, it printed us the hello for the 10 times, right, like this. But actually this is not the complete use of a range function. We talked just the basics like how we can use it, but this is not the complete way of using a range function. Now, what is the actual range function is? It's just like a slicing. How we does in slicing? We have the start, we have the stop, and we have the stepping points. Same way inside of it also we use start, comma, stop, comma, step. Just the difference is in slicing we use colons over here, and here we are going to use commas. Okay, so the same way we use it, and let's implement it. Let's say from 1 to 11, the stepping point of 2. Now what it is going to do? It is going to start from 1. It is going to end at as we have given the stopping point 11, so it is going to end at 10. Same way it works in the slicing, and we are giving it a stepping point of 2. So now let's run it. F9, and you see here it printed 5 times hello world. How it works? For the first time, then it gave a one stepping point, then 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. It does not even print it for the 10th because there was a stepping point of 2 and 10 was jumped over. So this is the complete way of using a range function inside of it. Now let's talk about let's say let's declare some string over here, string 1. Okay, give it let's say code warriors. Okay, now let's create a for loop for converting this string into a list. Now how are we going to do it? We say for, let's say, letter in str1, then we'll say let's put it in some other, or let's create a list also, my list, let's say, and we will put it here, my list dot append and letter. Now this is how we basically use, we have learned in the previous video how we are gonna do this thing, how we're gonna run uh, let's say for loop inside of a string. We declare a for loop, we declare a string, then we fetch letter by letter from a string, and here what we are doing is appending inside of a list. Now we have in the list we have learned how to append inside of a list. Okay, there is some kind of an error it is showing over here or something. Invalid syntax. Why it is? Okay, let's run it. Let's see what error comes. Okay, there was no error. It is some kind of a glitch inside Spider. Now you see here in the variable section over here, my list, it says CODE. Then we have given a space over here, and then warrior. It is not displaying complete, but if you open it, we can see it's complete code warriors. Okay, but you see this is a very how many lines we have used? 1, 2, 3, 4 lines we have covered for doing this task only. Now how we can simplify it? How we can do it in a much more simpler way. Now the list has this kind of a feature inside of it. Let's say my underscore list, okay, equals to. Now what we are gonna do? We are gonna put a for loop inside of this list. We are gonna say for letter in str1. Now this is incomplete because when we are using it inside of a list, we have to give it write it like this: letter for letter in str1. Now what is happening here? Now each letter that is coming over here is getting inside of this letter keyword, and is storing over here. So now if we run this program, okay, first let's remove this variable from here. To remove any variable, all you have to do is right click on it and press remove. Yes, now this variable is removed. It does not exist in the code. Now let's run this program. F9. And you see, again this happened. Now what? It just within a one line we created this my list. No for loops, no coding inside of the for loop, no indentations, nothing. Okay. Now wait a minute. Yep. Now let's okay, now we can do lots of operations inside of this. Like if we wanna say um let's say anything like again let's create a list. Okay, let's say list 2 equals to. Now what? Let's say let's print the squares of the numbers. Okay, so the squares of the numbers ranging from, let's say, from 0 to 10. So now to do that, what are we gonna do? Is simple is like num for num in range, and we talked about from if we talk about 0 to 10, then it will be 0 comma 11. And now we want to do the squares of all the numbers. Now we can either write it like num into num, or we can say num asterisk asterisk 2. Now what is this gonna do? Now whatever the value num will fetch from here, it will give it to this variable, and it will, the operation over is square. So it will square the variable num and put it inside of a list. So now let's run it and see what happens. F9, and see over here the variable list 2. Here it has 0 square of 0, 1 square of 1, 4 square of 2, 9 square of 3, 4 square of 16. Now we can do more operations, like we can use if else inside of this. Now let's say if we want to print only positive squares of only positive numbers. Now we can write f if num percent 2 equals to 0. And now let's run it. F9. And now see list 2. List 2 only contains the squares of the even numbers. Now more we can work like this is just if. Now we can create an else statement also. And to write an else statement, a little bit of a modification we have to create. Like we use if then over here. Like this. And then we write else. And let's say we print squares of even numbers and the cubes of the odd numbers. So let's say if num percent equals to 0, then this condition will work, else num asterisk asterisk 3. Okay, now let's run this. Okay, wait a minute, let me shift it a little bit here so that you can see the whole code. And if we run this, F9, and now you see, let me open it. 0 0 1 is an odd number, its cube is 1, 2 is an even number, square 4, 3 is an odd number, 27, 4 is an even number, so 16. So this is how you can we use for loops inside of a list to make it you can say reduce the code's length. But yeah, this becomes a little bit complex and hard to understand. But if you write code like this, it is easier to understand what's happening over here. You can understand it just by looking at it at a blink. But when you see this, you need to put your mind on it. Okay, what I am doing here. Okay, I'm using as this for loop in range. Then doing its operation num square, and then there's an if saying num if it is even, then square. Then there's an else cube. Okay, this is what happening. But you see, all these kinds of operations we did in a one line. Otherwise, if we have to write this code in like a this method, then it would have taken lots of lines, like 6 to 7 lines it would have covered to complete this. So this is all in a Python. We can use much more things over inside of here. We can use lots of functions inside of it. Try it in yourself. If you got any problem, just put it in a comment section and I will help you. If you don't understand anything, just put it in a comment section and I will look at it. If it is of much more requirement, then I'll put a separate video over that topic to make you understand it more easily. Okay, thank you. See you in the next video.